Hello! Today we're doing something a little different. Lately I've been thinking about things I've noticed in newer and veteran players of Dungeons & Dragons. I sometimes use terms or make assumptions that have made things more difficult for newer players of mine. Then I thought, maybe my older players have issues here today too. So I decided to make this guide. Most of what I'll say is relevant specifically to being a player of mine, but it will also be applicable in a broader sense to you if you found this somehow. The first thing I wanted to cover is what a player even is. Dungeons & Dragons is a math-based RNG management role-playing game. But a better way to think about it is as theater. Hear me out. Players take to the stage in the theater of the mind, where they fulfill their roles to progress various plots. There isn't a script, but there are roles. It works best when people fulfill their roles, but what is your role as a player? Primarily, it's to have fun. This is a social game, where you have to be somewhat vulnerable, and willing to behave in ways maybe you wouldn't always behave in. Here are a few examples to make the point I'm making here make sense. You're a new player. The Dungeon Master, or DM, is a friend of yours. You're joining a group that has played together before, so you aren't exactly familiar with them or how they'll play. You're playing a devoted paladin, and the party is mostly amoral rogues. What is your role here? Well, that's actually pretty dependent on the group and your own goals. Maybe the most fun thing to do is be the straight man. Maybe it's to find ways to justify within your oath the actions you take. Maybe you get corrupted by their influence. There's an unlimited number of maybes here, so which one is right? As a player, it's your job to read the other players and determine the route that is most fun for yourself and the people you're playing with. Maybe the answer is even that you need to play a different character. I cannot tell you for sure what the best thing for you to do will be. But if you keep an open mind, you can figure it out, I promise. I can, however, tell you what's wrong. Imagine this same scenario is playing out, but you decide the best course of action is to be the new main character. Over-dramatic, talking over the other players, ignoring them, refusing to entertain their ideas. If you dominate the spotlight by force, nobody is going to have fun playing with you, even if you're having fun, which takes away from the social aspect of the game. This isn't to say that these are all bad things to be or do, but it is to say that you should pay attention to the people you're playing with. It's the most fun if everyone gets a chance to shine. An important thing to keep in mind is everyone's relationship with each other. D&D shouldn't have an aggressive hierarchy. Being a veteran doesn't necessarily make your ideas the only good ones, and being new certainly doesn't mean your ideas are bad. Some of the most interesting things I've ever seen have come from new players who don't have preconceived notions of what will or won't be possible. Even if you have a party leader, they aren't really in charge of you. Don't develop an unhealthy relationship with the other players. It's going to stifle your creativity and fun. So, what's a DM? I might make another video about that if I feel it's necessary, but I do want to clarify a few things for you as a player. They aren't your boss, they aren't God, they aren't some kind of puppet master pulling all the strings. I like to view them as another player who has to change characters a lot, and has a copy of the script. Their job is primarily to facilitate the fun, keep the plot going, conjure up images, direct encounters. They're like a narrator. They aren't your enemy. They aren't always your friend. Your enemy is an imaginary goblin. Your friend is the shopkeeper they're playing, or the dog, or whoever they are the rest of the week when you aren't playing. Now that my opinion is out of the way, for now I'm going to get into some raw. Raw stands for rules as written, and as a term I'll use a bit because it makes things easier for me to say less words. Here's a scenario. Your DM tells you to roll initiative. What is that? Roll to attack. What are my options? Make an acrobatics check. What does that mean? What is my AC? Do you have rations? I have no idea. This is the part of the show where you need to manage yourself, and I'm gonna make that make more sense. We will go through each part of the character sheet, common phrases I have used in reference to these sections, and some pretty basic examples of why you would want to remember these things. I'll be explaining things with the visual aid of a 5th edition character sheet, but this is all generally applicable to a D&D 2024 sheet as well. Here at the top, we have some pretty basic information about you and your character. Here's your character name, the name of who you are playing. Class and level, I usually write it like this. If you multi-class, I write it like this. Background is a part of character creation. You'll typically pick from a list of backgrounds that provide you bonuses and traits. For reference, you'll put it here. This comes into play in examples such as, you enter a church and see evidence of strange worship. With my acolyte background, do I recognize anything here? And it carries on from there. Next is your personal name, how you want to be addressed. When I hold on to my players' sheets so that they don't lose them between sessions, this is invaluable to me. Race is not too distant from background in how you determine what it is and what it does for you, meaning you determine what it is in character creation, and what it does for you is kind of just more features and traits. It plays into roleplay as well, though. As a dark elf, would I be able to navigate the Underdark better? As a dragonborn, I attempt to communicate peacefully with my cousin, and so on. Alignment gets a little tricky to explain, and I'm not going to get into it here. Good, neutral, evil, lawful, chaotic, neutral. These determine your character's moral compass, more or less. Typically, players that do whatever they think is funniest pick chaotic neutral. I explain it simply as an inclination towards what is good or evil, and whether that is a logical leaning or more of an emotional leaning. This isn't technically correct raw, and can be ignored if you aren't one of my players. Experience points determines when you level up. I tend to do milestones, so players level up when they reach certain story beats, but that is not always raw. Usually each encounter deals a certain amount of experience per player participating in the encounter. Next we will cover these 4 boxes on the right. These are strictly for roleplay within the context of the game. I consider them reminders for who your character is, what they care about, what drives them, and what holds them back. I can go into greater detail here another time if this doesn't make sense to you. The middle section here has a lot of little boxes, but they're all pretty important. Armor class, or AC, is how hard you are to hit. It is the minimum number for an attack to land. It is determined by your armor rating plus any applicable bonuses. Raw, if you have an 18 AC, then you get hit with an 18. I play typically that a tie goes to the player, but Raw states that you are safe from 1 through 17, and if it meets, it beats. Initiative is really simple. It's your dexterity bonus plus applicable bonuses. Usually you won't really have applicable bonuses, but if you're told to roll initiative, you roll a 20-sided die and add your initiative. Speed is how many feet you can move per turn. This number is typically determined by race and doesn't usually change. The next box here is your hit points, or how many points of damage you can receive. There's a line here at the top that says hit point maximum. This is your current maximum HP. Below that is what your current actual HP is. When you get hit, you reduce the number. You can heal up to whatever your maximum is, typically not exceeding it. Below that is your temporary hit points. These are more akin to a shield, and are reduced first before your actual hit points. It's the typical only way to quote-unquote exceed your hit point maximum. Some spells and abilities will add to how many temporary hit points you have. This is when this box is used. Hit dice is what number you roll for health, which is determined by your class. When you level up, you roll your hit dice and add the roll plus your constitution modifier to your hit point maximum. Your total number of hit dice is equal to your current level, which can be expended during a short rest as a resource to heal. During long rests, you recover up to a maximum of half your dice. So, if you have 6 and spent 2, you can recover both. But if you have 6 and spent 4, you can only recover 3 until your next long rest. Here are death saves. Simply, when you hit 0 health, you fall unconscious. While unconscious, you make a death save every turn, just rolling a d20 and taking the number on the dice. 10 or higher is a pass. 9 or lower is a fail. If you fail 3 times before passing 3 times, you die. If you pass 3 before failing 3, you stabilize and are done making saves. Moving further to the left, we have Inspiration. Inspiration is a special reward given to players for certain character actions being met. Raw, an Inspiration die, can be used to give yourself advantage on any check made using the d20. Proficiency bonus is determined by your level and is a flat number added to the total on a skill check or saving throw in which you have proficiency. Saving throws are made when certain events occur. If you're poisoned, you make a constitution save, for example. Shot with lightning, dexterity save. Your class gives you proficiency in saves, which allows you to make saving throws with greater effect. If you are a barbarian, you get to add proficiency to your strength saves. I fill in the bubble to let myself know I have proficiency, and this line is where I put the total bonus I have. So for a strength save with proficiency, I have, say, a 5. When I make the save, I roll a 20, add 5, That determines what my saving throw was. Next is skills. These are essentially the same as saving throws. If the DM says to make a religion check, you roll the 20 and add your religion bonus, which is either just your intelligence modifier or intelligence plus proficiency, depending on whether or not you're proficient. These are alphabetical on 5th edition sheets, but grouped based on the relevant attributes for the 2024 sheets. Next, we have your ability scores and bonuses. These are determined by one of several systems during character creation, and can sometimes change with leveling up. Common systems I've used to determine these scores are rolling 4d6 and removing the low number, rolling just a 20, or having an online system explain what point buy is to me. I put the total score in the bubble, and the bonus in the big box, but I'm pretty sure you're supposed to do it the other way around. But what is the bonus, you ask? Well, it's really simple. It's x minus 10 divided by 2 rounded towards 0. So, a 20 is plus 5, 18 to 19 is plus 4, and so on down to getting negatives. More good news, you don't ever need to actually do that math. There are charts all over this game for this. Here's one now. This box is your passive wisdom. It is 10 plus your perception bonus. Well, what is my perception bonus, you ask? Well, here in the skills box is your perception. I see the bubble isn't filled, so no proficiency bonus for you. But your wisdom is an 18, so you do get a plus 4. 14. If you have additional modifiers for perception, they contribute here as well, like certain items or features. What is it for? Simply, it's your passive ability to notice things that are hidden or out of place. If you enter a room and things are hidden, you essentially make a hidden check to see if you notice anything. If your passive perception was high enough, you notice these things. If you feel like something might be hidden, you can make a proper perception check, and if you did better than your passive, you might notice more things. This is not the only use case, but it's probably going to be the most common. This box is your attacks and spellcasting. I list most of the things I care to use frequently in this box, but remember that this isn't every tool in your arsenal. We'll go more into depth here later on in the video when talking about combat specifically, but for now, the name of the attacker spell goes here, your bonus to hit goes here, the damage and damage type goes here. Take a breath, I'll explain. If you are using a short sword, the name is Short Sword. The attack bonus is your relevant modifier, plus proficiency if you're proficient, plus any additional bonuses. In this case, strength bonus plus 2. But if it's a plus 1 short sword, it's strength plus 2, proficiency, plus 1. Some weapons or attacks use a different bonus, particularly spells, but we'll also get into those later. Moving on to damage/type. This weapon does 1d6 plus your modifier piercing damage. Each weapon or attack has a damage dice, in this case the d6, and a damage type, in this case piercing. Now before anyone who knows a thing or two about short swords says anything, this weapon has a property called finesse. Finesse lets you use strength or dexterity, depending on which you prefer. Usually whichever is higher. I'll cover this again in other weapon properties when I get to the combat section. For now, you only have to remember ability score modifier plus proficiency plus additional bonuses is the roll to see if you hit. Damage dice plus ability score modifier plus additional bonuses is the roll to see how hard you hit. This box is so unfortunately small. There's a box on page 2 that I use as an extension of this, and I'll talk about that when we get there. For now, let's start with these tabs on the left. These are where you track money. Copper, silver, electrum, gold, and platinum. Platinum is the highest value. Copper is the least. The exchange rate is typically a scale of adding 1 0 to the end. 1 copper is 1 copper. 10 copper is 1 silver. 100 copper is 1 gold. 1,000 copper is 1 platinum. But you skipped electrum? Electrum is a more exotic currency. It's worth half a gold or 5 silver or 50 copper. Thinking of it as half a gold is the easiest way for me to reconcile it, but maybe you'll have an easier time by considering it to be 1/20th of a platinum piece. The rest of this box is to track your equipment, which is your stuff and your things. That hat you bought in town, the witch's finger you stole, your explorer's pack, and whatever is actually in one of those. I'll go over what's in one of those later. Features and traits. This is where you track things like dark vision you have for being an elf, or the rage ability you have as a barbarian. It'll get clogged pretty quickly, but don't worry, there's always more space to write. As you level up, you'll maybe want to go back and add more information to a feature or a trait, because some improve with you instead of just getting replaced. These are alternative options for things you can do, or skills you can utilize. I can secure as passage as a feature from my sailor background. Is an example of how to initiate securing passage using the feature provided to you by having the background sailor. I know I just said the same thing twice, but it's just an example of what you can do using what goes in this box. The last box here is other proficiencies in languages. Your background, race, and class will be what primarily contributes to filling this box out. What types of weapons and armors you have proficiency in, what languages you speak, what tools you can use. These are simple examples of what goes in this box. Here is an image of it filled out for a tiefling bard with a folk hero background. This section is from being a tiefling, here is for bard, and here is for folk hero. Remember, as we move to page 2, this is your character sheet. Use the boxes how you want to. Download a different PDF that has aesthetics you like better. Live your life. I draw in the margins. Page 2 is optional, and not often used, which I think is unfortunate. It's exceptionally good for roleplay, and, if nothing else, is more space to write things down. Here's your character name again. This way, when you trip and throw all your pages into the air, you can find out which page goes to which character. This box has basic appearance stuff, age, height, weight, eye color, skin color, hair color. This box is for a picture of your character. You can upload an image here to the form fillable sheet on Wizards of the Coast's website, or you can draw, or you can write really descriptive. Or you can use it for more of the stuff you're hoarding because your DM doesn't do carry weight. This box is where you track allies and organizations, but I use it to also track enemies or just people of note. Right here, a short blurb about people of importance, name and why that matters. And here you can put names of organizations / symbols and an image of that symbol. So if you're a Hell Rider, you can put the organization Hell Riders and their symbol right here. This box is as straightforward as any. It's where your backstory goes. This is where you get to be as dramatic as you want. It is important to remember in writing a backstory to make it appropriate for the level your character is. I grew up in the mountains where my people were oppressed by dragons and have devoted myself to killing them. I've killed one of each color except red now. Is well and good, but at first level you're lying to me. Just a little something to consider. Additional features and traits. This is the exact same as the box on the first page, but a lot more space so you can put a lot more information. This is the last and most useful box on this sheet. Treasure. All those little goodies you've been picking up go here. I know it says treasure, but I use this box for my additional equipment as well. I write pretty small, honestly, so this box could contain explicitly treasure and other items of value to me, but it ends up being where I start tracking the random things I've picked up, which I guess are treasures to me anyway. This third page is the most complex to those of you who primarily play martial classes, and for those of you who are fairly new to the game. The good news is, it's actually pretty straightforward when it's blank. Spellcasting class. This is what class this sheet is relevant to. If you're a warlock, that's what goes here. Wizard, artificer, bard, etc. Spellcasting ability is whichever ability score is relevant to the type of spellcaster you are. As a warlock, it's charisma. Spell save DC is how hard your spells are to dodge or resist. Not every spell gets a DC check. DC stands for difficulty class. To determine this, the calculation is 8 plus proficiency plus your spellcasting ability modifier. So, as a level 1 warlock with 18 charisma, it would be 14. As you level up and your proficiency increases, so does this DC. If you can increase your ability score, it will also increase. This last box is your spell attack bonus. It's the exact same as your attack bonus from up top. Proficiency plus bonus plus additional modifiers. So for this same warlock, it's a 6. When is this relevant? When you make a spell attack, you add 6 to hit, which again, we will get more into later. All of these boxes are functionally identical except this one. We will start here. Cantrips are spells you know that you can cast without expending any of your magic. They're not always the most flashy, but they're very fun and useful. Some do damage, some just do mild roleplay nonsense. It's possible to learn more cantrips than there are lines here, so don't feel limited by the paper. The paper is not what limits you in this game, it is only your imagination. This box is the one we're going to look at next, because it has little words to remind us of everything we need to know, but I'll say it and explain it anyway. Spells have levels, up to 9. The level of spell is not equal to your player level. You gain access to more powerful magic as you get stronger. Many campaigns that I've played don't get past 5th level spells. Some classes don't get more powerful than that either, so it all depends on the length and difficulty of a campaign, as well as class. This is where you track your total number of spell slots. I use tally marks because it's pretty uncommon for the total number of available slots in a category to do anything other than increase. Here is where you track your expended slots. I use vertical lines here to keep track of how many total slots I have and erase them when I use them. For my players that are more beginner to Magic, I don't always track spell slots. But for people who are juggling sorcery points to restore spell slots, I get a little bit overbearing on the tracking. Here you put the names of every spell you know of a level. For some of you, this won't be enough lines, so we should consider the importance here of these little dots. Fill them in for prepared spells. Simple, elegant, refined. If the spell is prepared, the dot is filled. So you know 5 first level spells but can only prepare 3 a day. Every time you long rest, you can erase and fill in the dots to change which spells you have prepared. I'll get a lot more in depth on this later when I talk more about spells, but for now, dots are the ones you prepare, lines are the ones you can prepare, level, total available slots, expended slots. Simple. And now, hopefully, you know a little more about what all this character sheet nonsense is. So, what now? Now you play. Per my mom's request, I'm breaking this video into 2 parts, so part 2 will cover things that you can do. I hope to see you there.